Hey guys, what's up? Today is January 19th, or at least it is right now at the time of this recording. It's probably going to be January 20th by the time this goes up. That's just how internet recording stuff works. But while January 19th may not mean a lot to some people, it actually means a lot to me. That is because today is Edgar Allan Poe's birthday. And what a lot of people don't know about me is that I absolutely love history, mystery, and the paranormal and poetry. So Poe provides me with just all of that. And I've always been really interested in him because of that. So I'm not going to call him my favorite poet because I'm a Gemini, and that just kind of tends to change by the hour. But he definitely holds a special place in my heart. So today, I'm going to tell you all the creepy stuff that surrounds Edgar Allan Poe. First, let's start with how Poe died. There's a lot of mystery about how he died and what caused it. We probably, all of us, heard the old story that Poe died alone and drunk in a gutter. And I really don't know where the hell that came from, but it's definitely not true. It might come from the fact that he was seen all disheveled and fucked up and, you know, all of that, in a bar on Lombard Street. And shortly thereafter, he was found in a gutter and taken to the hospital. But he actually died in a hospital, and like I said, there's a lot of mystery that surrounds his death. For starters, we're not sure what caused it. But when he came in, he was in a coma. And the next day, he was just like sweating really profusely. And there was nothing that should be causing that. Just sweating a lot. The third day, he was a little bit better and things started to actually look up. But then on the fourth day, he was just really out of his head and confused and getting really pissy and belligerent with people. And after that, he just kind of settled down and died. You know, and I'm not a medical expert, but I am someone who knows that's not alcohol poisoning and that's not the DTs. I don't know what that is. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about Poe is that he was a lot like me in that when he was young, he really, really drank a lot. But then as he got older, he got really sensitive to the alcohol, so he quit drinking entirely. In fact, like, just one glass of wine would make him really sick, and he would be sick for days from it, so he wouldn't drink at all. So when they offered him some alcohol in the hospital, because it was, 1849, and that's just how they rolled, he turned it down. And in fact, he was barely able to drink water. And that's important. So I'll tell you why in just a minute. Just remember the fact that he couldn't even stand to drink water. In 1996, a pathology conference was held, and a bunch of doctors were told about Poe's symptoms. But they weren't told that the hypothetical patient was Poe. The most that they were told was that the patient was a writer and that his initials were E.P. And one doctor named R. Michael Benitez, who practices cardiology about a mile away from Poe's grave, he was asked to give a diagnosis based on just the symptoms that Poe exhibited right before he died. And he said it looked a lot like rabies. And since then, other doctors have came out and they agree with him, and they say that it sounds like encephalitic rabies. So, you remember when I said that he was having trouble drinking water? The old-timey word for encephalitic rabies is hydrophobia. And the current term comes from the fact that, people are not afraid of the water, but they have a lot of, like, really badass throat spasms and pain that are associated with the disease, and it makes it really painful to drink. And because of that, most humans and animals that are infected with rabies just don't bother to drink, even if they're thirsty. So they can be really thirsty and they're just like, nope, that hurts too bad, we're not doing it. So what about the fact that no one said anything about Poe having been bitten by some sort of wild animal, or like having some kind of gnarly bite mark somewhere? 25% of people who have rabies don't even remember that they were bitten. And what makes it harder to gauge this is the fact that it can take at least a year for symptoms to show up. So he could have been bitten a year prior to this. But when the symptoms of rabies do show up and rear their ugly heads, it typically goes from bad to worse really quickly, and the patients actually die within days. So that's actually my favorite theory whenever it comes to Poe's death, because it's rooted in a bit of science. I think, though, that if I don't discuss everything that surrounds Poe's death, and I didn't tell you about the other mysterious bits of it, there would be a lot of people that really got upset with me. So get ready for this. After his wife Virginia died, Poe started getting really sick and really depressed, which, understandable. His wife just died. But then he met this other woman and kind of like rekindled an old flame with her. And they were set to get married. And 10 days before their marriage, he was supposed to go to New York because he got an editing job. But he didn't actually make it there, so he never actually did that job. Poe was found delirious and in a gutter. But another weird aspect of his death was that he was in like hobo clothes. They were not his own clothes. They were basically like rags and, not as fancy as he usually wore. And I'm not sure what other people make of this, but I think he was probably robbed. And that really sucks donkey balls, because he was one of the first American writers who tried to make a living solely from just writing, which means that he was always broke as fuck. Like, he didn't have money, and if they did rob him, then they saw his clothes and thought he had money, and maybe they just stole his clothes after that because, he didn't have money. So that's kind of sad to think about. But after his death, mystery still followed him. Have you guys ever heard of the Poe Toaster? Every year on his birthday from 1949 to 2009, someone would leave three red roses and a bottle of cognac. I'm sorry, I can't get these words out today. They would leave 3 red roses and a bottle of cognac on his grave. This started happening about exactly 100 years on the day after his death. And this person would just like rock up to the grave around midnight to 6 a.m. and people would see him and witness him and stuff, but nobody ever messed with him and tried to get him to stop it. There would be crowds that would watch to see whenever he would show up and things like that. Every year he donned the same outfit. It was all black from head to toe, except for he wore a white scarf. And the scarf kind of makes sense because, it'd be cold in Maryland in January. We're not sure why the toaster chose cognac. There's actually nothing that suggests that Poe liked cognac, and there's nothing about cognac in any of his writings. So it kind of makes sense that maybe the toaster liked cognac instead of Poe. But we do have a good idea why he placed 3 roses on the grave instead of just 1. You see, Poe wasn't the only person there in that grave. That grave marker actually marks Poe, his wife Virginia Clem Poe, and his mother Maria Clem. Or I'm sorry, his mother-in-law Maria Clem. They're all in there, which would explain the 3 roses. And the guy named Jeff Jerome, who now curates the Poe Museum, has made a habit of keeping all the notes that were left at Poe's grave. And in 1999, there was a note left that said that the toaster had died and kind of passed the torch on to his sons. And that sort of sucked for everybody that had been watching the Poe Toaster for so many years, because these boys would just rock up unceremoniously in their street clothes if they showed up at all. Like, part of the time they were just not even showing up. And then in 2009, it all just stopped. Nobody's been doing this since 2009. So we'll never really know who the Poe Toaster was or why he actually performed this ritual ceremony thing. Poe is said to haunt several places around Baltimore, and that kind of makes sense. This dude's life was pretty messed up. And if you guys want, I can do a whole video just on that, because his life was so messed up. So comment below and let me know if that sounds like something you would be into, if you would like to learn more about him. Because I'll do that. The first place that he's said to haunt is the house that he lived with Virginia and her mom in for a few years. They didn't live there for very long. I think it was about 3 years. He's also reported to haunt his favorite bar there, because during that time he was drinking a lot and he had a favorite bar. Now, not many people actually see Poe at the Poe house, which you would think they would see him more than anything else, but they actually don't. More often than not, people say that they see an old lady, and she's referred to as being portly, so she was a bigger gal. And she's a little bit cranky. She's popped some windows right out their frames and slammed them into the floor and slammed windows and doors and stuff. You can hear her stomping around and muttering and whispering and, you know, generally just being a cranky old lady. And some people can feel her tapping them on the shoulder and stuff like that too. We're not quite sure who she is, but it could be Poe's grandmother Elizabeth, because she actually died there. So it would make sense for her to, you know, stick around the house she died in. Another place that Poe is said to haunt is Fordham Cottage. It's a tiny little house in Bronx, New York. And it was actually the last place that he lived, and the place that he wrote his last story. It's the place where Virginia died, and so that means that it's a source of major trauma for Edgar. And just like, it's just got his energy, you know, like it's where he wrote the majority of his work. His desk is still there, and so is the bed where Virginia died. So there's a lot of energy that is like connected to him still in the house. So that makes sense too. Another place that people say that Poe visits is the Edgar Allen Poe Museum in Richmond, Virginia. And you're probably thinking, like, well, you said he died in Baltimore, and like, why is he haunting this place in Virginia? And you'd be half right there. He never actually visited the museum. It wasn't around whenever he was alive, obviously. There was no reason to have an Edgar Allan Poe museum while he was still alive. but he did actually work a few blocks away from there at this place called the Southern Literary Messenger. And also his mother was buried just a few blocks away as well. So he's still connected to this place as well. There are a lot of things in the museum, a lot of exhibit pieces and memorabilia and things like that. And they're things that he had a lot of like strong emotional connection to. And these strong emotional connections can, as we know, sometimes cause the hauntings. People say that they see Poe's form like as a shadowy figure in the house. They don't actually see him like a full body apparition. It's just, shadowy. There are also these two little blonde kids that haunt the house, which people believe are from the original owners of the house. And what's creepy about them is that they only show up in photographs. So that's worth noting if you ever go check out the museum. If you take pictures, you might come up with a couple of little blonde kids in them that you didn't actually see. So at the end of this, in the description, I'm going to link my favorite Poe poem down in the description bar. I just feel like that is a good way to honor him, rather than just, talking about all the crap that happened to him in his life. It's actually called Annabelle Lee, and people feel like that's most likely about his wife, even though her name was neither Annabelle nor Lee. I like it because it's both a beautiful love poem and tragic at the same time. It's really worded well. So a couple of words that you'll need to know going into that poem are sepulchre. Probably didn't say that right. Sepulchre. Whatever. It's a type of tomb. And then seraphim, which is like an angelic being. I think it actually says the word angel in it a couple of times too. But a seraphim, it's like, whenever you think Cupid, that's a type of seraphim. So, I hope you guys have dug this video. Like I said, I'm really into paranormal research, and I was talking to Lee last night about how much I like the paranormal research and stuff, and like how I have this list of paranormal hotspots that are all around the tri-state area that I want to hit up. And that conversation just sort of made me to just decide that this is an entire aspect of my life that I haven't really been nurturing much. And like, Lee is just one of those people that challenges me and makes me think about what I want and things like that. So that was good. And because of that, you can expect more paranormal content and creepy stuff from me in the future, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's into this stuff. If you are and you liked this video, then be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you'll be alerted whenever I post new videos. I also post video game content, so that's gonna pop up too, just FYI. If you're not into that, you don't have to watch that, but it's part of my channel as well. Feel free to share this around various paranormal groups and stuff. I know I'm in like 80 of them myself, so probably gonna get shared around there. But with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and go. It's like 11:35. I've got to get this up. But I hope you guys have a good night. Bye.